Have you ever wondered why some people seem to move through life untouched by fear, manipulation, or doubt, as if they see the world from a higher place while everyone else is trapped in illusion? What gives them that unshakable presence, that quiet dominance that makes others instinctively respect or even fear them? It's not luck, it's not charisma, it's mindset, a ruthless Machiavellian mindset. This mindset isn't about cruelty for its own sake, it's about clarity, the ability to see reality without the comforting lies that most people need to survive. The Machiavellian mind understands that the world isn't ruled by fairness or kindness, but by perception, control, and strategic power. Those who refuse to see that truth live in submission, while those who accept it begin to shape their own destiny. You've probably noticed it in your own life, moments when you were too kind, too open, too trusting, only to watch others use your empathy as a weapon against you. Maybe you've played by the rules, hoping others would respect your honesty, your loyalty, your good heart, but instead you were overlooked, underestimated, or betrayed. You've felt it, haven't you? That deep realization that being good isn't always enough. Machiavelli understood something most people never will. Morality means nothing if it leads to weakness. He taught that those who rise above the herd must learn to think strategically, to control their emotions, to anticipate others' motives, and to use perception as a weapon. Because in a world driven by ambition and ego, those who can't read human nature are doomed to be controlled by it. But here's the paradox. The Machiavellian isn't emotionless. He's simply in command of his emotions. He uses fear, respect, charm, and silence like tools, not chains. He doesn't react to chaos. He shapes it. And that's what makes him dangerously powerful. Not because he dominates others, but because he dominates himself. This kind of mental mastery doesn't happen by accident. It requires a radical shift, from emotional reactivity to strategic awareness, from seeking approval to commanding respect, from being moved by life to moving life itself. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. The world begins to look different. You start to see the hidden motives behind every smile, every word, every action. You begin to understand that power isn't something granted. It's something you claim, quietly, deliberately, with precision and intent. What you're about to discover may challenge the way you've always seen human behavior, morality, and control. But if you stay with me until the end, you'll understand why the most feared and respected individuals in history all shared one common trait. They thought like Machiavelli, because once you learn to think this way, everything changes. Now, let's go deeper into the true core of the Machiavellian mindset and uncover the brutal clarity that separates the powerful from the powerless. When you start to see the world through this lens, something inside you shifts. You stop taking things personally. You begin to recognize that every interaction is a negotiation of power, whether it happens in silence or in words. You start noticing the subtle ways people test your boundaries, how they measure your reactions, how they mirror your emotions to gain control. And in those moments, awareness becomes your greatest weapon, because once you can see the game, you can choose how to play it. But here's something I want you to think about. How often have you felt that tension between staying true to your values and protecting your power? Have you ever caught yourself being too kind, too patient, only to realize later that it cost you respect? If you've been there, you're not alone. Many of us are taught to play small, to hide our strength in order to be accepted. Yet deep down, something inside you knows that power and authenticity can exist together. If this message is resonating with you, I'd like to know your thoughts. What part of this idea, the Machiavellian clarity, the emotional control, the quiet strength, speaks to you the most? Share your perspective in the comments. I read them personally, and your reflections add depth to this community. They remind others that they're not the only ones waking up to this reality. And if you're finding value in what we're exploring here, take a moment to like this video. It may seem small, but it tells the algorithm and me that this kind of content matters. It's how we reach more people who are searching for the same truth, how to think deeper, act wiser, and live with unshakable power. If you're new here, I invite you to subscribe. Join the people who are no longer satisfied with surface-level motivation, who crave knowledge that challenges the mind and strengthens the spirit. Because what we're building here isn't just a channel, it's a movement towards psychological mastery and inner authority. Stay with me, because what comes next will take this even further. into the hidden structure of the Machiavellian mindset itself and how it transforms weakness into strategic dominance. Most people live their entire lives reacting to emotions, to opinions, to the chaos around them. They're driven by impulses they don't understand, believing they're making choices when, in truth, their emotions are making choices for them. That's why the Machiavellian mindset feels so foreign, even dangerous to the average person. It demands that you step outside the noise, strip away the illusions, and see reality as it truly is, not as you wish it to be. Machiavelli's philosophy was never about promoting cruelty or manipulation for its own sake. It was about clarity, the ability to observe human behavior without distortion, to recognize the hidden forces that shape every interaction, every ambition, every betrayal. When you think strategically instead of emotionally, you gain something rare: control. Control not over others first, but over yourself, and that control becomes the foundation of all real power. In a world where emotions are constantly weaponized, through media, politics, and even relationships, the one who can remain calm and calculating becomes untouchable. Imagine standing in a storm while everyone else is swept away by the wind. That's what emotional mastery feels like. You stop being a piece on someone else's chessboard and become the one moving. Other pieces. This doesn't mean shutting off your emotions. It means understanding them deeply enough that they no longer dictate your actions. The Machiavellian mind doesn't suppress feeling. It channels it. Anger becomes focus. Fear becomes awareness. Pain becomes insight. Every experience, even suffering, turns into information you can use. That's what separates emotional slaves from psychological strategists. Now, I want to go even deeper into this idea, because once you learn to see through the illusions of human behavior, everything around you starts to shift. You begin to notice the unspoken rules that govern power dynamics in friendships, at work, even in love. You see how easily people are controlled by praise, guilt, or rejection. And the truth is, once you see the strings, you can never unsee them. You stop reacting, and you start orchestrating. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It begins with awareness, the courage to confront the truth that most people avoid. The truth that manipulation isn't rare, it's the default language of human interaction. But awareness doesn't make you cynical, it makes you precise. It gives you the clarity to decide when to engage, when to retreat, and when to strike with intention. It's in these quiet moments of awareness that real transformation begins, the shift from being influenced to becoming influential, from being emotionally reactive to being strategically centered. That's the essence of the Machiavellian core. 2. Think clearly, act deliberately, and stay unshaken when others crumble under pressure. Comment below, I see the game now. Most people believe power is about domination, raising your voice, asserting control, forcing outcomes, but real power, the kind that cannot be shaken, is quiet. It's rooted in emotional detachment. Weak minds react to every insult, every rejection, every challenge. They burn energy trying to prove their worth to others. The Machiavellian mind doesn't play that game. It understands that reacting is surrender, because the moment someone can trigger your emotions, they own you. Emotional detachment isn't coldness, it's composure. It's the art of remaining centered while the world around you collapses into chaos. When people insult you, betray you, or try to provoke you, your silence becomes your weapon. That silence isn't weakness, it's psychological dominance. It confuses those who feed on emotional responses and starves manipulators of the drama they crave. The truth is, most people live addicted to emotional chaos. They need conflict to feel alive. They mistake noise for movement and passion for purpose. But when you learn to detach, you become untouchable. You stop letting temporary emotions dictate permanent decisions. You start acting from strategy, not reaction. Every word, every gesture, every pause becomes deliberate, and that control is terrifying to those who can't master themselves. Think about it. The calm person in a heated argument always wins, not because they speak the loudest, but because they refuse to be dragged into the storm. Their calmness exposes the insecurity of everyone else. Emotional detachment gives you that edge, the ability to observe, analyze, and respond only when it serves your purpose. You begin to see emotions as data, not destiny. Now I want to go even deeper into this idea of control, because it's not just about managing what you feel, it's about mastering how others perceive you. When you can stay composed under pressure, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. People fear what they can't read and respect what they can't manipulate. That's why the detached mind commands authority without even speaking. This level of mastery transforms the way you lead, negotiate, and connect. It frees you from guilt, fear, and the constant need to explain yourself. You start living on your own terms, guided by logic, clarity, and strength. Emotional detachment becomes more than a defense. It becomes your shield, your strategy, your silent form of dominance. Comment below. Calm is my power. Power begins with perception. You can't influence what you don't understand, and you can't understand what you don't observe. The Machiavellian mind knows that to win in life, you must become a student of human nature, quietly studying the patterns of behavior that others overlook. Every person reveals who they are through subtle signals, their tone when they speak, their eyes when they lie, the pauses between their words. To most people, these details mean nothing, but to the strategic observer, they reveal everything. Machiavelli understood that human beings are driven by predictable forces: desire, fear, pride, and insecurity. Once you learn to identify which of these drives someone's actions, you hold the invisible strings of power. You can anticipate their moves before they make them. You can see through false intentions, flattery, and manipulation with surgical precision. This is not about judgment. It's about awareness. And awareness gives you the kind of advantage others will never admit exists. When you truly begin to read people, you stop being fooled by appearances. You realize that confidence can be faked, kindness can be a mask, and morality can be a performance. You start seeing what lies beneath: the hunger for validation, the hidden fear of rejection, the unspoken desire for control. Most people reveal their true motives not through words, but through contradictions. Their actions always betray their emotions. The Machiavellian sees those contradictions instantly, and that's why he rarely loses. Now I want to go even deeper into this craft, because perception isn't just observation, it's interpretation. You begin to test people's reactions, to make small psychological moves and measure their responses. You notice who becomes defensive, who stays calm, who avoids eye contact when truth approaches. Each reaction tells a story about power and weakness. Over time, this skill becomes instinctive. You no longer just hear what people say, you feel what they mean. And once you reach that level, manipulation loses its power over you. Lies no longer sting, because you recognize them before they're even spoken. You stop fearing betrayal, because you can sense it forming in the silence long before it happens. This is what makes a Machiavellian thinker so dangerous. He doesn't just play the game, he sees the entire board. To understand human nature is to hold the blueprint of influence. And when you master this art, people stop being mysteries. They become maps. You learn exactly where to step, when to wait, and when to strike. Comment below. I read the truth behind the mask. Most people believe kindness and cruelty are opposites, but to the Machiavellian mind, they are tools, instruments of influence used with precision. The weak act on emotion, offering kindness when they crave approval and cruelty when they lose control. The strong act with intent. A Machiavellian never moves without purpose. Every gesture, every word, every silence carries strategy. He understands that kindness can disarm faster than threats, and cruelty, when delivered with timing and clarity, can protect his position better than any shield. Strategic kindness is not fake generosity. It's controlled empathy. It's knowing exactly what someone needs to feel safe, valued, or indebted, and giving them just enough to align their loyalty with your goals. A compliment here, a small favor there, and suddenly you've built invisible chains that bind through gratitude. Most people will never question the motives behind kindness because they're too eager to receive it. That's why it's so powerful. Calculated cruelty, on the other hand, is the darker art, not driven by anger but by necessity. Sometimes mercy weakens authority. Sometimes silence lets poison spread. When lines must be drawn, the Machiavellian draws them. Sharply, he cuts cleanly, not cruelly, because power by its nature demands clarity. The moment you hesitate to enforce consequences, others learn that your boundaries can be tested. The goal is not to harm, it's to create respect through precision. Now I want to go even deeper into this paradox, because both kindness and cruelty lose their meaning without timing. The difference between a master and a fool lies in knowing when to extend a hand and when to withdraw it. The Machiavellian studies context like a scientist. He reads emotional temperature before he acts. He knows that a well-timed act of grace can transform an enemy into an ally, but an act of weakness disguised as kindness can destroy everything. To operate with this level of awareness, you must detach from guilt. Guilt clouds judgment. It makes you act to feel good, rather than to do what's effective. The Machiavellian has no interest in emotional comfort, only in results. And that's why his kindness is remembered and his cruelty is respected. He doesn't seek to be loved or feared. He seeks to be understood as someone who cannot be manipulated. Once you learn to use both sides of human nature strategically, you stop being a victim of it. You no longer play the role others assign to you. You become the one who decides when to heal, when to hurt, and when to walk away in silence. Comment below, I move with purpose. Morality is one of humanity's greatest illusions, a story we tell ourselves to make chaos. Feel controlled. From the moment we're born, we're taught what's good and what's evil, what's right and what's wrong. But those rules were never neutral. They were written by the powerful, designed to keep others obedient. A Machiavellian sees through this illusion. He understands that moral systems are not divine laws. They're tools of governance, crafted to maintain order and protect the interests of those who create them. This realization isn't about rejecting morality. It's about understanding its true purpose. When you stop accepting every rule as sacred, you begin to see the patterns behind them. The same society that condemns ambition calls humility a virtue, not because humility is noble, but because it keeps people docile. The same people who preach honesty use deception to maintain their advantage. The Machiavellian mind recognizes that hypocrisy isn't an exception. It's the system itself. Most people follow moral codes blindly because guilt is a powerful leash. They fear judgment more than failure. They crave approval more than truth. But when you rise above that conditioning, something remarkable happens. You start thinking independently. You stop asking, is this right or wrong? And start asking, is this wise or foolish? Wisdom becomes your compass, not guilt. Now I want to go even deeper into this awakening, because true power begins when you create your own code. A personal code guided by clarity, integrity, and strategic purpose, not imposed by fear or tradition. This doesn't mean abandoning empathy or conscience. It means aligning them with reality instead of illusion. You still value honor, but you define it on your own terms. You still act with fairness, but not at the cost of your strength. The Machiavellian operates beyond good and evil, in the space of results and responsibility. He understands that moral absolutes collapse when tested by real life, when survival, loyalty, or ambition come into play. That's why he doesn't cling to ideals. He adapts them. He uses morality as a language, not a prison. To some, this seems ruthless, but to those who understand power, it's the only way to stay authentic in a world built on contradiction. This is where clarity replaces confusion, where guilt no longer dictates your choices and wisdom takes command. You stop being a follower of borrowed ethics and become the author of your own. And when that happens, the illusion of morality loses its power over you forever. Comment below. I follow my own code. Power is never loud. The loudest person in the room may seem dominant, but he's often the most transparent, and transparency is weakness. The Machiavellian understands that silence is not emptiness, it's strategy. When you speak less, you give others space to reveal themselves. Their words expose insecurities, ambitions, and hidden motives. The one who talks most gives away control. The one who listens longest collects it. Silence creates mystery, and mystery breeds influence. People fear what they can't predict because uncertainty unsettles them. They project their own thoughts, fears, and fantasies onto the silent figure, giving him more power than words ever could. This is why the calm, reserved individual is often perceived as dangerous, not because of what he says, but because no one knows what he's thinking. The unknown terrifies the human mind more than any threat spoken aloud. But silence isn't just the absence of speech. It's an active tool of observation. When you remain quiet, you notice the details others miss. Micro-expressions, hesitation, tone shifts. You start reading conversations beneath the surface, seeing how people compete for attention, validation, or dominance. Every pause becomes information. Every reaction becomes a map. Through silence, you gain psychological vision. Now I want to go even deeper into this power, because silence alone isn't enough. It must be intentional. The Machiavellian uses mystery like an artist uses shadow. He reveals only fragments of himself, just enough to intrigue but never enough to define. People become addicted to that ambiguity. They keep guessing, and as long as they guess, you control the narrative. You become a mirror for their imagination. They see in you what they fear or desire most, and that projection becomes your armor. This form of control is subtle, almost invisible. You're not forcing anyone to obey. You're allowing them to surrender voluntarily, drawn by curiosity and uncertainty. The less you reveal, the more power you gain, not by deception but by restraint. Because in a world obsessed with oversharing and constant noise, self-control is rebellion. Mastering silence doesn't make you distant, it makes you deliberate. It teaches you when to speak, when to listen, and when to disappear entirely. True influence doesn't come from being understood, it comes from being impossible to predict. And in that uncertainty, your power grows. Comment below. My silence speaks louder. Real power begins within. You can't command loyalty, respect, or influence if you're still at war with yourself. The Machiavellian mind understands that self-mastery is the foundation of all external control. Before you can lead others, you must learn to lead your impulses. The restless emotions, the ego's demands, the constant craving for validation. Most people never reach that level of discipline because it's uncomfortable. It requires silence, patience, and solitude. Three things the modern world avoids at all costs, but solitude is where power is born. In isolation, there's no audience to impress, no noise to distract you, only truth. It's in those quiet hours that the Machiavellian refines his inner strength, facing the chaos of his own mind until it bends to his command. He doesn't suppress emotion, he studies it. He learns its triggers, its patterns, its weaknesses, until emotion becomes a servant instead of a master. Discipline is not punishment, it's freedom. It's the ability to choose your response instead of being dragged by impulse. Every small act of self-control, rising early, finishing what you start, saying less, observing more, builds the kind of strength others can feel but can't define. Over time, that restraint becomes magnetic. People trust those who are calm under pressure because calmness signals mastery. Now I want to go even deeper into this transformation because the path of self-mastery is not glamorous. It's a quiet battle against comfort, distraction, and doubt. It means training your mind to endure discomfort without complaint, to keep moving when motivation fades, and to maintain clarity when emotions scream for reaction. This ruthless discipline doesn't come from ego, it comes from purpose. The Machiavellian knows that those who cannot control themselves will always be controlled by others. When you begin to master your impulses, you start seeing the world differently. Opportunities appear where fear once lived. Rejection no longer destabilizes you. Failure becomes feedback, not defeat. This shift doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you unpredictable, because no one can manipulate a person who has mastered himself. Self-mastery is the rarest form of power because it can't be taken away. It's built through choices made when no one is watching. It's the quiet decision to stay composed when everything inside you wants to react. And once you own that level of control, the world no longer dictates your path, you do. Comment below, I master myself first. Something remarkable happens when you begin to think like a strategist instead of a seeker. You stop asking for permission to be powerful. You stop explaining yourself. The endless need for validation dissolves, replaced by a calm certainty that you no longer have to prove anything. This is the transformation, when your power stops being an external pursuit and becomes an internal presence. You don't chase influence, you radiate it. You don't demand respect, it's given instinctively. People can feel it even if they can't name it. That quiet authority, that steadiness that makes others listen before you even speak. The Machiavellian transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of deliberate refinement, cutting away the weaknesses, illusions, and emotional noise that cloud judgment. Each act of restraint, each decision rooted in clarity, shapes you into someone different. You stop being reactive and start becoming strategic. You no longer move out of fear or impulse, but out of intent, and that shift changes everything. Your posture, your voice, your energy. You become the kind of person others follow without understanding why. This level of power isn't about arrogance, it's about alignment. You're no longer divided between what you want and what you fear. Your actions, words, and values move in one direction. That unity gives your presence gravity. People feel safer, calmer, and more focused around you, not because you dominate them, but because you embody control in a world addicted to chaos. Now, I want to go even deeper into this state of strategic power, because it's not just psychological, it's magnetic. When your emotions and mind align, your decisions carry weight. You attract respect without noise. You influence without needing approval. You lead without chasing followers. This is what true authority looks like. Influence born from inner order. And here's the hidden truth. The more you master this energy, the less you need to assert it. Power expressed subtly is power multiplied. The strongest leaders, the most persuasive minds, the most resilient individuals all share this invisible quality. The calmness of someone who doesn't need to win every battle to win the war. This is the point where strategy becomes instinct, where composure becomes dominance, and where presence alone shifts the atmosphere of any room you walk into. You no longer ask for power. You are power. Comment below, I embody power. True power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need noise, approval, or validation. It moves quietly, precisely, and with intention. That's the essence of the Machiavellian mindset. Not domination, but mastery. Not control over others, but control over self. When you reach that level of inner stability, you stop being moved by the chaos of the world. You become the calm inside the storm, the eye that sees clearly while others spin in confusion. And in that stillness, you find something more valuable than influence. You find freedom. Power built on domination always collapses because it depends on fear. But power built on discipline, strategy, and emotional control can't be destroyed. It evolves. The Machiavellian understands that influence is not about forcing outcomes, but about shaping perception. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to prove yourself to be respected. True authority comes from presence, from the unwavering confidence that no one can shake your core. When you embody that dangerous calm, people start to respond differently. They sense something in you, an intensity that doesn't need to be spoken. You become unpredictable, not because you hide, but because you no longer play the emotional games others rely on. Your silence carries more weight than their arguments. Your composure exposes their weakness. That's the moment you realize you don't need to fight for control. You are control. This transformation changes everything. Your relationships, your decisions, even your perception of success. You stop chasing power and start channeling it. You no longer burn energy trying to be understood by everyone. You reserve it for those who can meet you on your level. The approval that once mattered becomes irrelevant. You begin to move with clarity, guided not by emotion, but by vision. And that's when your life starts aligning with your true potential. Now I want to go even deeper into what this calm truly represents. It's not indifference, it's precision. It's the awareness that reacting gives others power, while restraint multiplies yours. It's knowing that revenge, validation, and competition are distractions from the real mission. Mastery of mind and mastery of movement. Every step you take from this state of calm carries force. Every word becomes deliberate. Every silence becomes strategy. When you reach this level, manipulation loses its grip. Fear stops dictating your choices. You no longer bend to pressure or opinion, because you've learned something few ever do. Power doesn't come from control over others. It comes from control over yourself. The moment you master that, you become someone the world can't easily define, intimidate, or use. This is the dangerous calm, the state of being feared, respected, and deeply at peace at the same time. The Machiavellian mindset isn't darkness for its own sake. It's clarity in a world blinded by emotion. It's the art of seeing truth, staying centered, and moving with intent no matter the circumstance. If this message resonated with you, if something inside you recognizes that quiet strength, take a moment right now to show it. Subscribe for more insights that sharpen your mind and awaken that strategic intelligence within you. Leave a comment below and write one word, power, to mark the moment you chose strength over weakness. Because that choice, right now, is where your transformation truly begins. If you made it all the way to this point, it probably means something in this message spoke directly to you. Maybe it reminded you of your own journey, that quiet decision to stop reacting and start thinking with purpose. If that's you, leave a comment below and write, I'm here until the end. I always read those, and it's how I know this kind of content is reaching the people it was meant for. If this video gave you something valuable to think about, a new perspective, a moment of clarity, or even just a sense of calm, go ahead and like it. It may seem like a small thing, but it helps this message find more minds like yours, people who are ready to understand power on a deeper level. And if you haven't yet, take a second to subscribe. Everything here is created to sharpen your awareness, strengthen your mindset, and help you move through the world with strategy and composure. There's another video right here that continues this idea and goes even further into the psychology of control and influence. Click and keep going. Let's keep building that dangerous calm together.